Right now, there are at least 7 AI tools people casually call ChatGPT even when they're not using ChatGPT at all. And that mix-up costs people real time and real money, because in 2026, there is no single AI tool that wins at everything. One is better for writing. A different one is better for research. Another is faster at pulling in what happened an hour ago. A fourth one is basically invisible, quietly living inside your code editor. People keep paying for 5 different subscriptions trying to find the best one, when the actual answer is that the best one depends entirely on what you're doing in that moment. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which tool to reach for depending on the task in front of you and which 2 tools most people should actually be paying for, not 5. We're not ranking these 1 through 7, that's not how they actually work in practice, and honestly, most best AI tool videos ranking them that way are oversimplifying just to get a cleaner title and a bigger thumbnail number. Instead, we're going through what each major AI tool is genuinely good at, what it's weaker at, and what it actually costs, so you can build the right toolkit instead of just defaulting to whichever one you happen to download first, or whichever one your coworker mentioned last week. ChatGPT, from OpenAI, is still the tool most people mean when they say AI, in the same way people used to say Google it regardless of which search engine they meant. Its current flagship model, GPT 5.4, credibly leads across coding, computer use, reasoning, and general knowledge work at the same time, which is exactly why ChatGPT works as a true generalist rather than a specialist tool. It's strong at brainstorming and ideation, it handles a huge range of casual and professional tasks reasonably well without much setup, and it has by far the largest ecosystem of plugins, custom GPTs, and third-party integrations built around it. The free tier exists but comes with the tightest limitations of the major tools, expect ads and lower usage caps than you'd get elsewhere. The standard paid plan, ChatGPT Plus, runs about $20 a month, with a budget tier called ChatGPT Go around $8 for lighter use, and a $200 a month pro tier aimed squarely at power users who want the highest usage limits available. If you only want one AI tool and mostly want it for everything writing, research, quick coding help, general questions, ChatGPT is still the safest single default to start with. Claude, from Anthropic, has built its reputation on 2 specific strengths: careful, accurate long-form writing, and strong coding performance, rather than trying to be the flashiest or fastest option on the market. Independent comparisons in 2026 consistently point to Claude as the most accurate option for both writing and software development tasks specifically, especially anything involving nuance, tone, or working through an existing codebase rather than starting from a blank page. Its current Sonnet 5 model ships with a full 1 million token context window and can independently read a codebase, plan multi-file changes, and run its own tests, genuinely useful if you're doing serious technical work, not just asking quick one-off questions. The trade-off is that Claude tends to be more conservative and less flashy in its presentation than some competitors, it ships fewer built-in consumer features like image generation, and its free tier, while capable for document analysis, has tighter usage limits than you'd get from a paid plan. Claude Pro runs about $20 a month, with a Claude Max tier around $200 for heavy daily users. If your work is writing heavy or code heavy specifically, Claude is consistently the strongest pick among the mainstream options. Gemini is Google's AI, and its single biggest advantage in daily use has almost nothing to do with raw model quality, its integration. Gemini is wired directly into Gmail, Docs, Drive, Meet, and Calendar in a way ChatGPT simply can't match unless you go out of your way to stitch together third-party plugins yourself. On the model side, Gemini 3.1 Ultra processes video natively at 60 frames per second without a transcription shortcut in the pipeline, and Gemini 3.1 Pro more than doubled its score on ArcAGI2, a benchmark built specifically to resist memorized answers and test genuine reasoning. Reviewers also consistently rate Gemini as the most reliable option for image generation among the major assistants, which matters if visual output is part of your workflow. If you already live inside Google Workspace for work or school, Gemini often ends up being the most practical daily driver, not necessarily because the underlying model is smarter than the alternatives, but because it's already sitting inside the tools you're using every single day anyway. Google AI Pro is the cheapest of the major paid tiers at just under $20 a month, and there's a much larger Ultra tier for users who want maximum capability across Google's ecosystem. Grok, from xAI, is built around one clear advantage: speed on real-time information, ahead of everything else on this list. Because it has native access to live data from X, Grok can summarize what's being discussed on the platform in the last hour in a way that beats even dedicated research tools like Perplexity on raw real-time speed specifically. It also ships with the most permissive guardrails of any major frontier model currently available, which genuinely appeals to some users looking for less filtered output and genuinely concerns others. That's a real trade-off worth knowing about going in, not a minor footnote to skip past. Grok's free tier is also the most restrictive on this list by a wide margin, capped at roughly 10 prompts every 2 hours, which makes it a hard tool to rely on day-to-day without paying for it. The standard Super Grok plan is the most expensive of the mainstream subscription options at around $30 a month, though a cheaper X Premium tier exists with more limited AI features bundled in. Grok isn't the tool most people should reach for as their daily default, but if your work genuinely depends on knowing what happened in the last hour rather than the last month, nothing else on this list matches it. Perplexity solves a problem the chat-style tools never fully fixed, knowing whether you can actually trust the answer you were just given, or whether it needs a second check. Every response comes with live, inline citations linking back to real sources. A feature called Spaces lets you save ongoing research threads over time instead of starting fresh each session, and its deep research mode can produce a genuinely useful multi-source report in a few minutes instead of the hour or more it would take you to compile manually. For students, analysts, journalists, or really anyone whose job depends on being able to show their sources on demand, Perplexity is consistently rated the strongest option available for that specific job, free tier included, since its free plan is considered the best free research tool among all of these by a comfortable margin. Perplexity Pro costs about $20 a month, in line with the other standard plans on this list. It's not trying to be your everything app the way ChatGPT is, and that narrow focus is exactly why it works so well for the one job it's actually built for. GitHub Copilot occupies a completely different lane from everything else on this list. It lives inside your code editor, not in a browser tab you switch over to. Its core strength is fast, inline code completion while you're actively writing, the kind of moment-to-moment suggestion that saves real time without ever breaking your flow to go ask a separate chatbot. What changed significantly in 2026 is flexibility. Copilot now lets you swap in different underlying models directly from its own model picker, including budget-friendly options from outside Microsoft entirely, while keeping Copilot's own agent mode, tool calling, and deep editor integration fully intact underneath. A common workflow among experienced developers now splits the work deliberately. Copilot handles fast inline completions during active coding sessions, while a separate, more powerful tool handles large-scale refactoring or code-base-wide analysis that needs more thinking time. If you write code for a living, Copilot isn't optional in the way a general-purpose chatbot is. It's closer to an editor extension you'd genuinely miss the moment it was gone. DeepSeek matters for a completely different reason than every tool before it on this list: cost and openness, not raw capability. It's dramatically cheaper to run than the closed frontier models from the bigger labs, and because its weights are more open, developers can self-host it entirely or plug it directly into other tools they already use. It's already available as a swappable model inside GitHub Copilot Chat, for example, running with a full 1 million token context window of its own. It won't consistently out-reason the top closed models on the hardest, most demanding tasks, and it has real limitations, like being unable to natively process images without routing through another model first. But for bulk processing, large-scale codebase work, or teams watching their API costs closely every month, it's become a genuinely serious part of the conversation rather than just a curiosity people mention in passing. If you're building something rather than just chatting casually, DeepSeek is worth knowing about even if it never becomes your primary tool. 3 more worth a fast mention before we wrap up. Meta AI is built directly into Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook, so if your audience already lives inside Meta's apps, it's the path of least resistance rather than the most capable model available. Convenience over raw capability, and for a huge number of casual users, that trade-off is perfectly reasonable. Mistral, out of France, has become the go-to open-weight option for companies in Europe specifically concerned about data residency and regulatory compliance, since it can be self-hosted entirely within European infrastructure rather than routing data through a US-based provider. And for anything visual, image or video generation rather than text, tools like Midjourney and Google's own Flow sit in a completely separate category from everything else on this list, built for entirely different workflows, and honestly worth their own dedicated video rather than a rushed footnote here. Here's the honest conclusion after going through all 7. Trying to pay for all 5 major subscription tools would run you around $110 a month, and almost nobody actually needs that much overlap. What actually works for most people is one primary tool plus one specialist, not a full collection. If you write and code for a living, Claude is your primary plus Perplexity for anything that needs verifiable sources is a genuinely strong pairing. If you're a generalist knowledge worker who wants broad coverage without much setup, ChatGPT plus Gemini, especially if you're already inside Google Workspace for email and docs, covers most of what you'll actually run into day to day. If you build software professionally, GitHub Copilot isn't really optional at this point, and pairing it with either Claude or DeepSeek depending on your budget and how heavy your usage is rounds things out nicely. And if your work genuinely depends on real-time information rather than settled knowledge, Grok earns its place despite the higher price tag and the unusually restrictive free tier. The mistake most people make isn't picking the wrong AI tool at this point, there mostly isn't a wrong one left among the major players. The actual mistake is assuming one tool has to do every job, when the honest 2026 answer is that it doesn't, and trying to force it usually just means paying more for a worse result. That's 7 AI tools, what each one actually does best, and roughly what they'll cost you every month. Tell me in the comments which combination you're actually using day to day, and if there's a tool we didn't cover here that you think deserves a spot on this list next time, drop it below and we'll dig into it. If you want breakdowns like this before the hype cycle catches up to the actual facts, subscribe, that's exactly what this channel is built for, every single week.